Let's bring in Senior Editor-at-Large of Newsweek, Josh Hammer, and GOP pollster and messaging strategist, Brent Buchanan. Thank you both for joining us. This is the state of play at the moment. Marco Rubio has been confirmed to be Secretary of State, John Ratcliffe as CIA Director, Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defence, Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary, Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary, Sean Duffy as Transportation Secretary, Doug Burgum as Interim Secretary, and Lee Zeldin as EPA Director. But many of the nominees are still yet to be confirmed. Josh, you've been following politics closely for a long time. I want to get your thoughts on the hearings and what a joke they've become, and why are these confirmations taking so long?
Well, look, Democrats are trying to gum up the works by whatever means necessary for the very simple reason that they have nothing else to do, Gabriella. I mean, they don't have a substantive agenda. They don't even know what their agenda consists of right now. I mean, this is a party that is in about as deep as a disarray as they have ever been in their entire modern history. In fact, there was a recent Quinnipiac University poll, that's a reputable center-left pollster here in America, that showed that only 31% of Americans currently view the Democratic Party favorably compared to 57% of Americans who view the Democratic Party unfavorably. That 26-point underwater gap is literally the worst margin in the entire history of modern polling when it comes to Democrats. So they are in really, really bad shape right now. And I think you're basically seeing that in these hearings. They're basically just shouting at the nominees. They're spewing out a whole lot of nonsense because they're very frustrated and they don't really know what else to do. And the reason that they don't know what else to do, I think, is because they are systemically incapable of getting to the root of the problem. They can't actually get rid of the DEI beast. They can't get rid of the woke beast, because to do so would be to repudiate the entirety of the post-2008, post-Barack Obama legacy, which is something that they're not capable of doing at this time. Look, when it comes to Trump's nominees, I think that they're all going to get confirmed. The only one who I had really any questions about going into the past 24 hours was Tulsi Gabbard, but the latest news out of that is that Senator Susan Collins from Maine, who is one of the squishiest Republicans in the entire caucus, she said that she's actually going to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. So unless Mitch McConnell of Kentucky can kind of cobble together some older school Republican security hawks who really don't like Tulsi Gabbard's equivalence when it comes to Edward Snowden, something that personally I'm actually not the biggest fan of that equivalence either. I don't think it's worth taking her nomination on that. But if McConnell and his allies become so aggrieved by that they can tank her, that is the only possibility I currently see that any nominee might not get through. But again, I think she's safe too. RFK Jr. is going to get through here. Pam Bondi is going to get through easily. I think Donald Trump's going to get his cabinet at this point.
Okay, we're going to come back to Tulsi Gabbard, but Brent, what are your thoughts? Because it just seems wild to see some of the line of questioning from some Democrats. Pam Bondi had to accuse a senator of bullying her. Has this been, embarrassing for the Democrat senators and in the way they've handled these hearings?
Well, the Democrats have absolutely no clue what their message is. We have a saying in American football called flood the zone, and that's when you put all the receivers out at the same time. And right now, that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing to Democrats. The second that they think they have a thread of messaging to pull on, like the Canadian and Mexico tariffs, then he puts out 6 more executive orders. And I think that's the exact same thing happening with these nominees too, is he was very wise to lay this out to where people like Kash Patel for FBI and Tulsi Gabbard for national intelligence, and RFK Jr. for health, 3 of what were considered the more controversial nominees, he put them all out at the exact same time. So Democrats couldn't just attack one, they had to attack them all. And therefore, it looks like they're just going after everybody with no cohesive message and no way to say that this is why Democrats are better or that we have a stronger stance than the Republicans do right now.
Donald Trump has spoken about the confirmation hearings today, and he says that we need Kash Patel confirmed because he's the one who can fix the reputation of the FBI. Let's take a listen.
We have to have pristine, beautiful, perfect law enforcement. Kash is the one to do it, and I hear he's doing very well. Kash will straighten it out. We have great confidence that we can make the FBI great again.
Josh, talk to us about why Kash Patel is the one who will straighten it out, in the words of Donald Trump.
Well, I think Cash Patel is the perfect pick to lead the FBI. I actually co-hosted an hour of Steve Bannon's War Room with Cash last summer while Steve was unfortunately away in Danbury Federal Prison. Cash and I had a great back and forth while co-hosting that show. I mean, Cash Patel is someone who has worked on national security investigations. He's worked on DOJ investigations. He is someone who is well equipped to restore public confidence in the integrity of the FBI. The FBI, Gabrielle, I think it's important to remember, is really the agency more than any other in the entirety of the United States government that is at the belly of the beast of what we now refer to as the deep state. When we use the term deep state, it's really the FBI, maybe the CIA and the NSA, but really the FBI more than any other agency that we're talking about here. Because what really, I think when this term started to take on its next level, it goes back to Crossfire Hurricane in the 2016 presidential campaign, when the FBI was used as a tool of partisan political warfare to spy on the Donald Trump campaign, to spy on Carter Page and George Papadopoulos. We all remember those infamous text messages from those FBI agents, Carter Page or Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, talking about how the FBI would be a fail-safe backup mechanism to throw that election to Hillary Clinton if, God forbid, the American people failed. And thank God the FBI failed in that respect, because Donald Trump became president in 2016. But the FBI needs to clean house, because American society fundamentally cannot function. We cannot actually function unless the American people have basic trust in the competence and the integrity of the federal law enforcement apparatus. You need to have some level of public buy-in there, or else things could really go downhill and start to unravel in a hurry there. I think Cash, because of his work, because of the way that he views January 6th, because of the way that he views Crossfire Hurricane, Jim Comey, Christopher Wray, he is the guy who I think is going to end the partisan weaponization of the FBI, and I look forward to him being the next FBI director.
Brent, you've described him as one of the more controversial figures of all the nominees, but just how much can he really shake up the FBI if he is confirmed?
Well, I think that's the question that a lot of Americans have right now. And the fact that so much has happened at the beginning of this Donald Trump administration, and that of those who have already been confirmed, what they've been able to do once they've got into these agencies, I really believe that Americans' minds are opening up to the fact that we actually can change the system. And if we can't change it, then we completely get rid of it, like USAID was announced today, taking that agency and fully putting it under our Department of State. And so people like Cash Patel probably had huge ideas walking into this, and may have even doubted themselves how much they could accomplish. But watching Elon Musk and Doge and some of these other aspects of the Trump administration that are really delivering for the American people already, and wholesale changing how our government is run and how it's thought about, telling people that if you're going to get a paycheck, you better show up every single day for this paycheck, is that he probably, now that he's going through this confirmation, is realizing that he can accomplish pretty much everything that he had set forth in his mind.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see the new appointments are moving so fast to make big changes, including the new directive at the Pentagon. And this is to rotate all media outlets through the press office. So rather than having permanent desks for legacy outlets, which means removing some media organisations from dedicated office spaces in the Pentagon to make room for others. Josh, what do you make of this move?
Well, this is part of a series of moves that the Trump administration is making, I think, when it comes to trying to prioritize newer media, podcasters, YouTubers, things like that. In fact, the new White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, in literally the opening minutes of her first press conference, which happened last week, she said that this is a White House that is welcoming in podcasters. She was encouraging podcasters, YouTubers, bloggers, Substackers to try to apply for press credentials there. So this is very much in line with that. It's also, frankly, in line with the campaign that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance ran. Donald Trump very effectively utilized alternative media, newer media. He went on Joe Rogan's podcast. He went on a lot of shows like that. And in fact, if you actually look at the numbers there, when you go to the top, let's call it 100 shows on YouTube there, the total number of hours logged on the top 100 YouTube shows that Donald Trump had on the campaign compared to Kamala Harris, I forgot the exact ratio, but it was like 50-1 or something crazy like that. He totally dominated her. And I think, frankly, that had no small role to play in his tremendous mandate victory back in November. So this is also a bit of an element here, I think, of rewarding those aspects of the media who helped deliver him a victory. Donald Trump loves giving out favors and rewarding those who helped him along the way. So I think there's a little bit of that going on as well here. But this is very much part of, I think, a forward-looking agenda that views the legacy media, frankly, as yesteryear's media and views podcasters, YouTubers, Substackers as the media of the future.
Absolutely. It's interesting as well, Brent, because Trump made a point of this during the campaign, that the people that he has around him, the people he's nominating, are there to make big changes, because the way things have been running in America hasn't really been working, hasn't been helping the people of the United States. Now we're also seeing the potential scale down of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. There are concerns that the agency has really strayed from its intended purpose of providing civilian foreign aid and is essentially using taxpayer dollars to go to waste. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that he's now the acting director of USAID, and he's spoken about his frustrations with the agency.
I mean, my frustration with USAID goes back to my time in Congress. It's a completely unresponsive agency. It's supposed to respond to policy directives of the State Department, and it refuses to do so. Every dollar we spend and every program we fund, that will be aligned with the national interest of the United States. And USAID has a history of sort of ignoring that and deciding that there's somehow a global charity separate from the national interest. These are taxpayer dollars.
Now, Brent, this has, of course, caused some controversy, but I'm impressed with the speed, just how quickly the Trump administration has been able to kind of go after these agencies that may not be serving the American people.
Well, right now, Americans are open to looking at everything. And I really credit Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk for spending a lot of time in the lead up to Trump actually taking the oath of office to explaining what is the Department of Government Efficiency, why do we need one, what is it going to look at? And they're doing an incredible job communicating everything that they're seeing and finding. And they're starting and looking at every agency from the bottom up. When you look at how much money goes into USAID compared to CIA, at least what's on the books, and other agencies, I think everything's on the table at this point. And any agency who can prove that it is advancing the cause of our country is going to be fine. And I think even programs within USAID, there are going to be ones that are maintained and sustained, and maybe even additional funding given to them. But we're just finally to the point where everybody's going to have to justify the money that they're receiving. I saw a stat today that if we just went back to our 2019 budget, which is simply a year before COVID, we would actually have a $500 billion surplus in this country right now. And Americans are feeling the pressure and crush of inflation and higher interest rates and a government that keeps getting more and more money and is not responding to their needs or taking care of them. We've got a whole swath of Western North Carolina that has had nothing done for it since the hurricanes during the election that tore through there and ravaged entire communities. And then they see money go to Ukraine and they wonder, why are foreigners being prioritized over Americans for American tax dollars?